everyone. It is In Squared Sports, and we're going to be talking about some basketball today. Today, the scrims just started. It started like an hour and a half ago, and I'm pumped. I've already been watching two games nonstop. I loved watching them. So Nick and I came up with this idea. We're going to be making a case for every team. We're leaving out a couple of like the obvious teams. So we want to recognize some of the teams that really no one's counting, or the best recognition they get is, oh, they could get an upset. So we want to make a case, and some of these are going to be far-fetched since they are, fringe playoff teams. We're also leaving out some, such as the Suns, Spurs, Kings. Am I missing one?
And Orlando,
and the Nets as well, just because we believe there's no argument to be made. And you can make the argument for what we're going to do today, but yes. So today we're going to be talking about the Trailblazers, the the Pelicans, and I'm missing, and
the Grizzlies.
And the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
So Nick, let's start off with the Trailblazers. Let me hear your case for them. I love this one, and so yeah.
Yeah, so the Trailblazers right now are about 4 games out of that A seed, so they would have to play really well when the season comes back for their 8-game stretch. I mean, I'm talking like 7-1 or 8-0. It's going to be very tough for them to get to the A seed. They could still make it to the play-in tournament because right now they are. I think it's required to be 4 games back or less to be in the play-in tournament, so they definitely could get in. And they're probably the most experienced team that could be in this play-in tournament because Memphis is very young still, and the Pelicans are very young still. So, in a play-in tournament, I would give them a legit shot. Damian Lillard, like we were talking about before, has been very hot this season. He's been, other than his injury, he's been great this season, MVP-type year for him. Of course, they have C.J. McCollum. I think their center, Nurkic, is back for this for the playoffs. And they have some pretty good depth. I like Carmelo Anthony has played pretty well. They have Trevor Ariza. They drafted Nasir Little last year, who's been decent. So, I think they have a lot of pieces that are very good and could potentially get them into the playoffs. Now, they would be an 8 seed when they come into the playoffs, which they would probably play the Lakers in the first round, which would be really tough with LeBron. But you never know because the Lakers have lost some pieces now with Avery Bradley being out and Rondo being out. I think out of any team that could make it to that A seed, I think they're the most dangerous, and I think Nick probably agrees with me. So the case I would make is you have their center Nurkic coming back. You have Hassan Whiteside, who's another good center, and the Lakers have some pretty good centers. But I think the Trailblazers are one of the few teams that have the big men that could compete with the Lakers if they made it to the A seed. Also, Damian Lillard is great, and like the Lakers, they don't have the point guards now because you lost Avery Bradley, who was their point guard. They have Rondo is not there, who was their point guard, their backup point guard. And Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum are 2 of the better guards in the West. So, they do match up pretty well with the Lakers. Now, would I pick them over the Lakers? Probably not. I would say they probably would win a game or 2. They could definitely make some noise, but that's the case I make. Now, I don't think that they'll win 2 games. I think they would probably win 1, and it's pretty unlikely that they'll even get to the A seed because they are so far back. But that's my case. So go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just retweet what you just said, because what you said is right, and I pretty much agree. Just to add on to that is Damian Lillard, really, when he's been playing, has been insane this year. One of the most efficient point guards, and has just been, he's just been unbelievable. It's been great to watch. And for a point guard standpoint, for the players that have played this year, Steph Curry didn't play, and Kyrie really didn't play that much. He was top 3 when playing, and he's impossible to guard. He's one of the best 3-point shooters, and CJ McCollum plays so much better when Dame is there on the court with him. I guess my argument to an extension to that is if they made it to the playoffs, they definitely would have momentum going in. making that massive comeback and then going again. I wouldn't pick them over the Lakers, but honestly, maybe this is far fetched, and I'll talk about the Mavericks. I think I'd rather face the Mavericks than a heated Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Carmelo, Trevor Ariza. Like that team going into the playoffs scares me, and Damian Lillard in the playoffs is scary. Let's not forget this team was just in the Western Conference Finals last year. Even if you want to call it a fluke, they still made it to the Western Conference Finals. I guess that's my case for them, is that they have the talent, they've been there, and we've seen Damian Lillard just pop off. So that's my case for them. I can start us off with the Pelicans. I'll move us over to there. The Pelicans are an interesting team. They're the hype. For some reason, even though I think this is idiotic, the Bleacher Report came out and said that the Pelicans have the best starting five, which is absurd. But the point is they do actually have a decent starting five. It's just there's no experience on them. They're still young, and they're still gelling together. I mean, Zion's barely played this season. But I love Brandon Ingram. He's my most improved player this year, or most improved player award for this season. Lonzo's been playing all right. Drew Holiday, JJ Redick, and those guys they've got pretty good chemistry together. Zion is playing well. Again, it's still young. The case would be is if the stars aligned and that they that young, fresh team just win for it. And they had that we don't care, we're not going to lose anything mentality, and just went all in and were hitting shots and doing better. They have an easy schedule to get into the playoffs. Maybe if something went right and the Mavs failed, they can get to that 7th seed. I don't think that's possible, or it's very unlikely. But this team has the talent. We've seen them bully other teams before when Zion's on the court. They're healthy. I guess that would be my argument. It sort of is hard to make an argument for them, but I mean, if you want to add on to that.
Yeah, just to clear up what you said, the Pelicans are 11 games back of the Mavs right now, so it would take a miracle for them to get to a 7th seed. They're just trying to get to an 8th seed. Like you said, they are very young, and that is my biggest knock. So it's hard to make a case for them to me because they are so young. I mean, their average age is probably around 25 years old, 26 years old, which is very young. Their oldest player, I think, is Drew Holiday, or one of their oldest players is Drew Holiday. And when you have the young pieces that you do, it looks bright for the future. For right now, I think when they would come up against the Lakers team, that is the oldest team in the league and the most experienced team in the league, I think experience always wins in the playoffs. You can't be a young team that comes up against the most experienced team in the league and beat them. I just don't think it's possible. So my answer is pretty quick. I can't really make a case. The only case that I could make is if, like you said, the stars aligned and Zion averaged 30 and 15 and Brandon Ingram averaged 25 and 10 a game or something like that. That would be the only way I could see that happening, but I doubt it.
They also don't have a chip on their shoulder. They can play with that free mentality. Like we have seen an 8th seed team win before in a championship, and it's because they didn't have that. They had that carefree, I have nothing to lose mentality, and there was no pressure on them, and there really isn't pressure on them. Everyone knows they're young, so I could see that being to their benefit, and they're just playing basketball and they just win with no fan pressure, no nothing. That's the argument I can see for that. But if you want to start us off on the Grizzlies.
Yeah, Memphis to me is one of the most interesting teams going into this because they are the current 8th seed in the West, and they are, they're only about 3 games, 2.5, 3 games ahead of the Pelicans, and the Pelicans have a super easy schedule, and the Memphis Grizzlies don't have as easy of a schedule. They don't have a difficult schedule, but it's definitely harder than the Pelicans. So for Memphis, it's just going to be about playing good for these 8 games because they just need to get in. Because right now, the Pelicans are probably, I wouldn't say they're favored to win to get the 8th seed, but they are definitely they definitely have a really good chance to do that. So for Memphis, it's going to be playing good, having John Morant play like he has all year. If John Morant can have a chip on his shoulder and say, hey, I am the rookie of the year, I'm going to lead this team, then I think they can get to that eighth seed. I think once they get into the playoffs, I think Ja, being their leader, he can't do a whole lot. I mean, for him to be a rookie and to be already the leader of your team, it's going to be hard coming up against LeBron. I think LeBron's going to kind of put him in his place when he gets there. So it's a good story. It's for Ja to make it to the playoffs and to send Zion home. I think that would be a huge win for him. But I don't think once they get to the playoffs to play LeBron, they're going to have much of a chance just because LeBron is not going to let a 20-year-old kid beat him. So that's what I think.
I'm with you there. I like Ja, and it is already. I mean, he is the leader of the team as a rookie already, and I think you mentioned that. But it's hard to imagine him like this, and we have seen him struggle against top teams. My argument for them again is if Ja just explodes, and the role pieces just end up working well together. They fix their little flaws that they've had in the past, and they can keep up. And I'm more on the fan of this argument because I do like this argument, is they have no pressure on them. So they can play free and they don't have to feel so tight and tense like we see teams. The Lakers have all the pressure in the world on them. The Rockets have so much pressure on them. The Giannis, I'd argue, has a lot of pressure on him as a team. And on this team and him, these guys don't have pressure. Of course, normally, but you know what I mean. That's the argument I'd have for them. I'm rooting for them. I like Ja a lot. But yeah, this is our argument. Nick, do you have any more points?
The final point, I guess, to conclude everything, I think, conclusively for us, I think we both think the Portland Trailblazers, if they get into the playoffs, would have the best chance at upsetting the Lakers. I think the other two teams, Memphis and New Orleans, are just too young and inexperienced. The Trailblazers have been there before, like you said, last year they were. So I think both of us think that if the Trailblazers can rise up and get to the A seed, they would give the Lakers the best shot.
Alrighty, thank y'all for listening. Y'all have a great one, and make sure to check out our other tier rankings. We will be doing the rest of the playoff teams, and I bet you those are going to be a lot more extensive than us trying to come up with arguments for these guys. So thank y'all, and bye.